Welcome back to Conversations with Co-op Bank, and I am your host, Akira Patterson. If this is not your first time joining us, then you already know that this podcast is all about helping you to make financially savvy decisions, whether it's in your personal life or for your business banking. In addition, this is a conversation, like we've said, so we really want to get your feedback, and we've been appreciating the feedback that we've been getting thus far. So feel free to contact us directly via feedback@grenadacoopbank.com. If this is your first time joining us, then also feel free to check out our previous episodes where we would have discussed a wealth of topics that I am sure you will be interested in. Today, we are definitely going to be discussing a topic that I love, like all of the topics, but for some reason, this topic is aimed at helping you own a piece of Grenada, and who wouldn't want to do that? Today, we are talking about identifying the ideal property or the ideal fixer-upper, or you may be living in the diaspora away from Grenada and thinking, I want to purchase a piece of property here. It could be land, it could be a building that you want to retrofit and fix. Either way, this is the episode for you. So like I've been encouraging you, come close, take a paper, take a pen. If you want, like me, make sure and write notes or rewatch this episode, because you are definitely going to be armed with the right smart steps in order to help you own a piece of Grenada. I'm very excited today to be joined by two subject matter experts, two varieties of perspectives that we are going to benefit from today. Miss Paula Latouche, and she is a broker at Century 21. Thank you so much, Paula, for giving your time and your expertise for this conversation.
And thank you for welcoming me to your studio today and to your show, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful conversation with you.
Absolute pleasure. And also we have with us from Co-op Bank, Brendan McGilvery, and you are Sales and Service Manager at the bank. Thank you so much for giving up your time and expertise for this conversation.
No problem. It's a pleasure being here.
Yes. So we are jumping right into the thick of things, because I am very excited about this conversation. By the time we're done, I'm going to be purchasing either a piece of property or land.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Right. So Paula, let's jump into it. What are some of the smart steps that people should have in mind if you're interested in purchasing a piece of property or maybe a home to retrofit?
First of all, I like to, if I have any clients approaching me to purchase, the first thing I want to find out is their intent. Why are you purchasing, right? Because there can be many reasons, and there are many things that needs to be considered when purchasing. So the first thing I would ask them is, are you purchasing this just to get into the market, like a starter home?
Right.
But it's not really a dream home, but you want to get into the market. Are you looking to start a family? Are you a first-time buyer? Are you going to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years or within the next 3 months?
Right.
Are you from the diaspora? And try to find out what are your key things that you need. For instance, would you need to be close to transportation because you have kids going to school? Would you need to be close to a doctor's office because you might not be well and you need regular care? Would you also need a sea view, walking distance to the beach, right? So these are some of the questions. What are your lifestyle? Like, what does it look like? What are you trying to achieve from this purchase, right? Is it an investment? So if it's an investment, what sort of investment? What are the results you are looking for at the end of, okay, I'm going to purchase this apartment, or I'm going to build this commercial building and have office spaces. Who are going to be my target market? So all of these are the questions that we ask. And as soon as I get to understand it, the next thing I say, well, what's your budget? Right.
Because it's like you build a profile of the intent.
Correct.
And given that this is going to be a significant investment, whether it's for your dream home or whether you're thinking of flipping a property or something like that, you still have to consider what the intent is, and that would really speak to what it is that you would recommend for whoever the client is.
Exactly.
Yeah. And speaking of the budget, this is hand in hand, because I mean, it's one thing to think, okay, I want a home with $1 million view, but then you go to Brendan and it's like Let's see what view you can really afford. So, how early in the process of contemplating whether you're purchasing, a piece of land or a property to retrofit, how early is it to consider the budget?
Okay, so budgeting or otherwise knowing your qualifying lending limit or lending amount is very important. Yeah. And I will hasten to say, and Paula can back me up here, that is one of the first step that a client should take in knowing how much they qualify for.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree
And
100%.
also in purchasing a property or a piece of Grenada. Yeah, it's very, very important. It saves time for the bank, it saves time for the real estate agent, and it saves time for the client.
Okay. And from where you sit, what would your key recommendation be in terms of like a smart step for considering what the budgeting parameters are for the individual? And again, this will vary based on person to person, but just like you will have smart tips for deciding, okay, what the intent is. Are there like an aligned, perspective to think about when you're thinking about the budget for the property?
Yeah, it's
or
a line
investment?
similar to what Paula said earlier. When the client comes into us, we will have a conversation. Yeah. First, we'll ask them their intent, what they intend to do in the short term and medium and long term.
Right.
Yeah. If the client indicate that they want to buy land, we also ask, are you intending to construct in the near future or in the long term? Yeah. And it all depends on what the client indicates. Yeah,
Right.
90% of the clients that wants to buy land indicate that they'll construct in the short to medium term.
Okay.
Yeah. And then once they indicate that they'll construct in the short to medium term, when we qualify that person, we don't only qualify them for land, we qualify them for land and construction.
Right.
So that they will have the qualifying lending limit or the amount to go to Paula and say, hey, Paula, I want land, but I'm qualified for $1 million, let's say, And we encourage them when they go to the real estate expert as well, also have the other experts on seat or close to them, like the contractors, the architects.
Right.
So notwithstanding, they may see a land that costs $400,000 and the qualifying lending amount is $1 million. And based on the style and the design they see on, let's say,
Pinterest. He's
yeah,
saying
and
it.
Facebook, they want a modern home,
Yes.
2 floors. The contractor might say, well, that is costing $800,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it's costing $800,000 and you decide to buy a land for $400,000, you only have $600,000 left.
Or they might even say that because a lot of people have seen it, they've seen the design on Pinterest and they want to put it on a certain, they like the land, but they're not recognizing that design cannot go on that land.
On that land.
Yeah.
So that's why we encourage, okay, you find the land, we encourage the clients, and we are not experts in that field.
Right.
So we always encourage them to work with your architect.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
The
Right.
architect will decide, the contractor will decide and advise you, in addition to the real estate experts.
Beautiful.
The,
Because
the size and the scope that you want to take.
so what I'm really hearing is the intent on both ends. And then in addition to that, understanding that it's a relationship between you, the homeowner, the property owner, and all of the experts that are required from very early weighing in the conversation, so that what your intent is and what you actually see in front of you can align, or you can find a healthy medium.
Fantastic,
Correct.
fantastic. And one of the key things from the get-go is trusting the professionals and getting the right professionals to assist you.
Right.
So when you go to the bank would recommend those professionals to you. When you come to the real estate agents, we'll do the same for you.
Right.
Because we understand and know the market. So we're going to ensure that you are guided throughout the process.
Right.
Because sometimes I think there are some misconception out there that the contractors are no good, or the surveyors are no good, they'll give you wrong advice, but that is incorrect.
Right.
You must do your due diligence and you must trust the professionals. Don't trust the professional that your auntie tell you, well, I have a brother down the street, right? Or you're living in a diaspora and your uncle tells you, oh, well, don't go with that certified surveyor or a licensed surveyor. I know a guy down the street who
That
could survey
does that.
that does that.
Right.
And then in the future, you've recognized that something went wrong. And then you want to blame all surveyors.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing
Yeah.
that goes with the banks and the real estate experts as well.
And it might cost you more on the back end.
It does.
And it's not to say that maybe the surveyor down the street actually does do good work, but you have to know and you have to be able to trust that. So
Yes.
again, lamenting, doing your due diligence and ensuring that you have recommendations from the professionals that sit in this seat every day and have these same conversations, because you interact with numerous people.
Correct.
But you raised something earlier, Brendan, and you kind of echoed to it as well, Paula, in terms of people's intent. And sometimes the intent just boils down to one thing. I want a house, my dream home. I want a great view. I want $1 million view. And I mean, this is something, the more I speak to people and ask them, like, what your prerequisites are. I mean, it's lovely, that whole grid that you just lined out for us. And actually thinking that's a realistic thing to think about.
Right, correct.
But for some people, you know, thinking of your dream home, it's aspirational. You just want to know how you want to feel when you walk out on your veranda in the morning and sip tea. So you're thinking the $1 million view. What do you say to people, I show that come to you all the time, and that's their number one prerequisite?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm selling a dream, right?
Yes.
So always trying to help you with your dream, and that's our goal. But ensuring in that process that you're guided and given expert advice at all times, right? And quality advice, which is important. So yes, you want it. Well, first you have to figure out if you could afford it. And then secondly, going through that process would be, okay, I want $1 million view. But sometimes the $1 million view comes from, so if you choose to purchase a piece of land and you want to build that house on that $1 million view, the land might be steep.
Right.
Yes. And you go up on the hill and you see this beautiful view, you know, breathtaking, and you're thinking, you know, it could be mountain view, it could be sea view, you know, everybody $1 million view is different. And you love that, you know, and you're saying, oh my God. But you're not thinking, okay, the cost of building.
Yes.
You're not thinking, okay, I'll have to put a lot of back walls here in order to get, you know, to stabilize the home and to get the design I want. So the cost of building starts going up and up.
Right.
And one of the things that most people do not consider is that, okay, maybe they could afford it. Maybe Brendan could say, yes, it's going to cost you, you brought a contractor in, you've done your due diligence, you've done your soil test, and which you must do, especially on steep lots.
Yes.
Right? And the engineer, everybody tells you, yes, you can build it, right? Location, 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 real estate, the number one thing. You have to recognize the money you put in, you must be able to get it out at the end, right?
Even if it's your dream home.
Even if it's your dream home, and people fail to realize, because dream sometimes does not work out the way in which we think it would.
Right.
Right? Remember, we still life in it.
True.
Life exists.
True. And
right?
sometimes you wake up abruptly.
Correct, right? Things happen. So from a banker's point of view, they would want to always know that they can sell that home if something happens as well. You know, life happens. We don't want it to happen to it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it happens.
But you have to be realistic.
So you have to be realistic. So you have to think, okay, location. If I'm going to spend, so for instance, I'll give you an example. You go in Manjalo and you spend, you got this nice view and you decide, I'm going to put $2 million in that home. Plus land, you end up at $2.7 million. You have all these back walls and you have all of these things. Your home is beautiful. Everybody who walks in there think it's amazing. Something happens and you get it valued, but the market doesn't want to pay for it. And it's not because it's not worth the money in a lot of cases, but the market speaks. And that's what we have to recognize. So I wouldn't put $1 million US property in Manjalo.
Right. Right.
Because I know the time and effort it would take to sell that property in 15 to 20 years. And would I gain any, would it increase in the value in which that I would like? And even though it did by even 1%, 2-3%, would the market be open at that time to pay for it?
Right. Right.
Yeah?
That's key insight, Paula, because again, a lot of the times you have an idea of what you want and you're so caught up in the excitement
Correct.
of it, you know, and that perspective that you often don't think of these safety nets that you should include for within your dream, because you're dreaming while you're awake.
Correct.
And living life and lifing. So that's very important.
And Paula is correct. $1 million view to me is relative. You know, some people may see a mountain view as $1 million view. I like a sea view, a distant sea view. You know,
Right.
but
I like that.
But persons have to be cognizant of, for example, the sea view maintenance. And that's something that not much persons consider thereafter. Once they build a home, you know, maintenance is important.
Yes.
And especially when you like a sea view and you're building close or closer to the sea elements, the roads, your things like your appliances and your fixtures a lot faster. So for instance, if you have a fridge and a stove, and it generally is supposed to last you like 15 years, 10 to 15 years, it will last you 6-7 years.
Right.
Yeah. So that's something that you have to be very careful about. And it will cost you more at a good contractor doing a construction near to the sea will encourage you to buy the stainless steel fixtures.
Right.
Yeah. And that's more. It could easily cost you $100,000 more.
Right.
If you're building close to the sea.
So when someone comes to you and think, I want $1 million view and I want a sea view, not distanced, but close, immediately, what do you think and say to them?
No, I mean, that's the prerogative.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. I mean, once you can afford it, I would encourage it. You know,
I like that. Once you can afford it.
We want financing. But there are other conversations we will have.
Yeah.
Maintenance,
Yeah.
we'll set aside. So generally, when you come to the bank and we have different things, the post services like insurance accounts, you may want a compulsory savings. You know, some persons, like if they build a house, we have the insurance savings and we set aside a certain amount every month.
Right.
We may also, some persons open a separate account for maintenance, you know, for maintaining the property on a yearly basis, like doing little touches and paint over.
Right.
But it will cost you more in maintenance on a monthly basis. And if you could afford it, that's perfectly fine with the bank, and we'll encourage you to, you know, to set aside those maintenance. But we must advise you of those additional costs that the sea view will bring. And we'll advise you of we will encourage you to speak deeply with your contractor in terms of purchasing the quality materials, you know, because it's a lot of money, you know, completing a home. And Paula will tell you.
Well, yeah.
Finishings is a lot.
Finishing is a lot.
It's a lot. And the quality is important, especially when you're building close to the
And I
sea.
actually spoke to a contractor recently that said that to me. Like, you would see a piece of land and you think, okay, I want to build, let's say, a $700,000 property there. But in terms of what the actual value would be, it's a lot of the times based on your finish.
Yes.
And the finishes that you choose and your appliances and stuff like that, because it's based on preference.
Correct.
And that Pinterest view that we all covet and love to see. And I'm sure, like, I am not alone. There are several females, as I can say, that have several Pinterest boards, you know, just with the ideal kitchen, you know, or you have like 7 different kitchens and you want all of it to be in one because you see different things. But these are all, you know, valuable information that you have to consider in advance. And I'm not sure sometimes, again, as I said, while you're dreaming, that you have this at the forefront. So it's very important to have, you know, these realistic things that help keep your feet on the ground, so you can consider the investment on both ends. So the $1 million view is attainable. It is something that you can get and achieve. You just have to be able to afford it, and you have to take into considerations the other pitfalls and what the opportunity cost and the trade-off may be, you know, in terms of the quality of the land, the topography of the land, and what would be required to make the building structurally sound, you know, for that $1 million view.
Yes.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, this is definitely such a thrilling conversation. I think at the end of the day, there's so much to discuss, so much to talk about. And so far, we would have settled really into what is your intent, what is your budget, the fact that you have to consult your experts, of course, in advance, so that at the beginning of this process, you have a full scope to consider.
Yes.
And we have so much more to talk about, and you are going to see even more, and we'll discuss even more with Brendan and Paula on part 2 of this discussion, where you get to own a piece of Grenada, identifying your ideal property, whether you're based here in Grenada or whether you are away from home, but you want to invest here and have a piece of property here. So I encourage you to continue looking at Conversations with Co-op Bank, where we will circle back and discuss even more about what it is that you have to look for. And if you are living away, what are some of the things that you should think about in advance? What are the differences in what your lived experience is in the diaspora and what is available here for you? So if you've been taking notes, take a little break and circle back for part 2 of this discussion, where we talk even more on how you would be able to own a piece of Grenada right here on Conversations with Co-op Bank.